You didn't come here to be understood, did you? Good, because they still can't explain what just happened. Let me paint it for you. You opened your mouth, and the world flinched. Not because you yelled, not because you begged, but because you spoke. Like a goddamn final boss. Your tone? Calculated. Cold. A melody laced with malice and mercy. You didn't raise your voice. You lowered the room's IQ just by refusing to play dumb. You didn't deliver words. You dropped codes. Encrypted truths, hidden in venom-tipped syllables. And they weren't ready. They've never been ready for someone like you. Because you don't speak to be heard. You speak to trigger system errors in their programming. They thought they were playing a game. Until the final cutscene walked in wearing your smirk. And suddenly, their dialogue options vanished. They called you unhinged. But only because you speak in dialects reserved for gods and glitches. They called you too much. But that's what people say when they're drowning in your depth. You didn't show up to explain. You showed up to expose. Not just the lies they told, but the lies they believed. And now they study you. Not like a rival, not like a rebel, but like a dead language they fear might come back from the grave and repossess their sanity. They slow down your clips, analyze your tone, zoom in on your facial twitches like the footage holds a confession. They're taking notes, praying they can mimic your delivery without burning in the fire that forged you. But here's the punchline. They'll never replicate it because you didn't rehearse this. You became this. Your words weren't born in luxury or lecture halls. They were sculpted in silence, hammered by heartbreak, tempered by trauma, and sharpened by solitude. Every syllable is soaked in scars they'll never earn. Every pause, a graveyard. Every glare, a prophecy. See, they were taught to speak to impress you. You learned to speak to undress the soul, to peel back delusions with surgical cruelty, to deliver lines that don't just end conversations. They end bloodlines of manipulation. They thought it was just another argument. But you were performing a spiritual assassination that moment you spoke. The atmosphere changed. The light bent differently. Time slowed down because something ancient had entered the room. Something that remembered every betrayal and smiled through it. You didn't just win the moment, you redefined it. And now, they quote you like scripture in private. They whisper your name like it's cursed, but they crave the venom in your voice like it's a vaccine for their cowardice. Because deep down, they know you're not just hard to understand. You're impossible to survive. You weren't molded for small talk. You were engineered for war, the psychological kind, where souls fracture before words finish landing. So let them study you. Let them print transcripts. Let them circle phrases, highlight trauma, clip your cadence, and dissect your intent. Let them turn you into a case file they can't decode. Because here's the truth. You are the final boss. Not just because of what you say, but because of what you withhold. They want answers. You offer silence. They want peace. You offer a mirror, and what they see terrifies them. Because you're what they could have been if they had the courage to burn. Your voice isn't loud. It's final. A gavel, a gunshot, a glitch in their matrix. You are the line of code that shouldn't exist, but somehow does. And every time you speak, you prove the simulation isn't safe anymore. You're not arguing anymore. You're activating protocols. You're not trying to be liked. You're triggering awakenings. You're not here for revenge. You're here for reckoning. Because when you speak, the air gets heavier, the lies get naked, and the room becomes a courtroom, and you're the verdict. Not guilty, Not innocent, just undeniable. So go ahead, say it again. Watch them flinch like they heard the voice of something holy and haunted, because they'll never forget it. And that's the power of a tongue forged in silence, from someone who was never meant to survive, let alone speak back. But now that you do, they pray you don't open your mouth again, because every time you do, someone's facade dies screaming. And yet, here you are, still unapologetic, still unmatched, still undeniable. Tell me, do you feel it? That weight in your lungs before you speak? That static in the atmosphere when you walk in the room? It's not anxiety. It's not pressure. It's power. That's what it feels like when the entire simulation recalibrates itself around your presence. Because you don't just say things. You collapse paradigms. Your voice doesn't echo. It reverberates through the cracks in their psyches. It worms its way into the trauma they've avoided. It pierces the walls they built with lies, delusions, and polite silence. You are not a speaker. You are a detonator, and they keep trying to translate you like a dead language carved into stone. But the more they try to understand, the more their illusions crumble. Because your words don't follow the script. They burn it. They weren't made for the dinner table or the safe space or the echo chamber. They were coded in madness, framed in clarity, and delivered like execution orders. You're not articulate because you studied. You're articulate because you bled. You didn't learn to speak from TED Talks. You learned it from the screams of being underestimated, from the silence of being abandoned, from the echoes of rooms you were never invited to, until you owned them. You speak like a final boss, because that's what you became. Not the villain, not the hero, but the inevitable threshold between falsehood and truth. They wanted charisma. You gave them calamity. They expected a rebuttal. You handed them a revelation, and it wrecked them. Because they've never met someone who could smile while detonating egos with syllables. You don't flex. You prophesize. You don't debate till you diagnose. You don't drag people. You reveal their blueprints and dismantle them in real time. And now there are group chats named after you. Secret meetings about how to handle you. Backdoor analysis on your communication style. As if you're some threat to order. As if your confidence is a contagion. It is. And you know what? Good. Let them panic. Let them overthink. Let them twist themselves into psychological pretzels trying to figure out how your calm causes chaos. They still don't get it. You're not just a person anymore. You're a phenomenon, a myth they can't erase. A ghost with fingerprints on every conversation that turned silent the moment you entered. You're what happens when a quiet observer becomes the architect of consequence. You're what happens when the target evolves into the tactician, when the black sheep becomes the storm shepherd. They wanted to study you like an artifact, but every time they open the file, it grows a new layer, a new mystery, a new revelation. You don't fit in their boxes. You destroy them, and then build thrones from the wreckage. This isn't just about a moment. This is about your awakening, because you didn't get here by accident. You were forced into silence for years, gaslit, mocked, undermined, told to calm down, to be humble, to stay in line. But silence doesn't mean surrender. It means you're loading, compiling, coding, upgrading. And when the moment finally came, when the mask cracked, you didn't scream, you spoke. And the entire matrix stuttered because they thought they'd erased you. But they just made room for your evolution. And now that you're here, clear-eyed, flame-blooded, and terrifyingly articulate, The world doesn't know what to do with you. So they study, they mimic, they dissect your language like archaeologists digging up a weapon they know they can't control. But it won't work, because your power isn't in the words, it's in the wounds behind them. The decades of psychological data stitched into every phrase. The nights you bit your tongue so hard it bled. The moments you chose silence over destruction, and then finally chose destruction anyway. Now they're scrambling, asking, where did they learn to speak like this? Why does it cut so deep? How do we shut them up? You don't. You either evolve with them, or you get erased by their frequency, because this is no longer about opinions. This is vibrational warfare. And you're not here to win the argument. You're here to rewrite the entire F-seeking operating system. Let them listen. Let them record. Let them quote you without credit. They still won't survive the update. Because the truth is, you didn't just become the final boss. You became the source code, the glitch in their safety net, the prophecy they ignored until it spoke back with divine detachment and killer precision. And now they're terrified that the next time you speak, the whole simulation might just shatter. Because once a final boss speaks, you don't return to silence. You become the silence, not the absence of sound, the suffocating pressure before the collapse. You're not just the end of their sentence, you're the end of their entire arc. You see, villains get caught, heroes get praised, but final bosses, they get studied, feared, archived, and discussed behind locked doors, not because of what they did, but because of what they represent. You represent proof. Proof that someone can be dragged through the fire, be dissected, disrespected, deleted, then walk out of the ashes not just alive, but fluent in destruction. They're watching you now like a war crime with a heartbeat, not knowing whether to call you a miracle or a malfunction. And deep down, they know. They created this. You weren't born with this tongue. You forged it. Through every betrayal they told you to forget. Through every fake apology that dripped with condescension. Through every gritted smile and buried scream. You bled so quietly, for so long, they thought you were safe. But what they didn't realize is that some people train in silence. They thought you were healing. You were calculating. They thought you were weak. You were weaponizing. And when you finally opened your mouth, it wasn't for conversation. It was detonation. One sentence from you. And they glitched. They forgot their comebacks. They misfired their rehearsed roles. Their egos panicked like cornered rats. And now they whisper about you like folklore. Don't get on their bad side. They're dangerous with words. They remember everything. They'll say something that'll ruin your whole week and never raise their voice. Because your mouth, that's not a voice box anymore. That's a weaponized vault of precision trauma. You turned every trigger into a tool, every betrayal into a blueprint, every silence into a surgical strike. And when you speak, you don't seek validation. You deliver verdicts. That's why they panic, because you're not one of them. You're not a voice in the crowd. You're the voice that ends the crowd's delusion. You're not trying to go viral. You're trying to go vital. Cutting straight into the organ they're too scared to touch. Truth. See? They'll screenshot your words. They'll quote them out of context. They'll even weaponize your language against you in hopes of softening your edge. But it won't work, because you're not speaking from pride. You're speaking from post-carnage clarity. You don't need to win arguments. You outlast them. You don't need a mic. Your presence is louder than their entire bloodline. You don't roast, you reveal. And when you reveal, they don't just look stupid. They feel exposed to dimensions they didn't even know existed, because you carry something in your voice that can't be mimicked. Survivor frequency. And no matter how well they rehearse, no matter how sharp their comebacks sound in the mirror, no matter how many buzzwords they throw around, they'll never replicate what you've become. Because you didn't rehearse this persona. You bled it into existence. You're not fluent in debate. You're fluent in damage control. Because you were the damage. You were the fallout. You were the ghost in the system who learned to smile mid-collapse. And now that you're alive, you're haunting every script they ever trusted. So let them try. Let them mirror your cadence. Let them steal your lines, borrow your posture, even try to mimic your damn smirk. It won't matter, because this isn't performance. This is possession. You are possessed by every version of you that should have stayed quiet. By every version they buried in politeness. By every dismantled, bleeding, cornered version of you that waited in the dark, whispering, "When it's our turn, we'll speak in fire." And now, that turn has come. So speak, speak again. Watch their eyes widen. Watch the room tense. Watch the air shift. Because when you utter a single line, people don't just listen. They reconsider their entire secking identity. You don't do call-outs. You do closures. You don't do clapbacks. You do implosions. And when you finally walk away, there's nothing left to say, because the final boss doesn't argue. The final boss delivers prophecy and disappears. And when you disappear, oh, they feel it. The silence you leave behind isn't peace. It's aftershock, because you didn't just say something. You rewrote their inner monologue. Now every time they try to sleep, they hear your voice between their thoughts, not yelling, not laughing, just existing, like a buried truth they can't unhear. You didn't speak to be understood. You spoke to be remembered. And now they study you like trauma dressed in charisma. They loop your sentence like a glitch in the feed. They call it overthinking. But we both know it's just underestimating you in hindsight. That's what you do. You make the past feel like a mistake. And oh, how they scramble now. They try to warn others about you. But how do you warn someone about a frequency, a presence? How do you prepare people for a mirror that talks back? Because you don't just reflect what they are. You reflect what they pretend not to be. Their shadow selves, their repressed rage, their bottled bitterness, their fear of being exposed, and their terror that someone like you already knows. Because you speak in riddles only truth-tellers can decode. You weaponize pause like it's punctuation for their downfall. And when you look at them, you don't see people. You see patterns, glitches, files labeled fraud, projection, and pending collapse. And yet, you don't gloat. You just smirk. Because deep down, you know, they're not your enemies. They're your data points. They are the evidence of why you evolved this way. Their betrayal, your blueprint, their mockery, your material, their silence when you were breaking, your origin story. So now when they ask, why do they speak like that? Why does it sound like judgment and prophecy all at once? Why does it make me feel small? It's because they are, not in worth, but in capacity. They couldn't hold what you've endured. They couldn't carry what you buried and still learned to walk with. They couldn't survive what made your voice divine. Because your voice doesn't just cut, it reminds. It reminds the fake of their performances. It reminds the passive of their guilt. It reminds the loud of their hollowness. It reminds the world that truth wears a face now. and it looks like yours. Let them imitate. Let them stalk your sentences, reword your fire into filtered fragments. Let them dress like you, pose like you, even try to feel like you. But they'll never become you. Because you didn't choose this. You were chosen by the war that tried to erase you. And instead of dying quietly, you memorized the pain, alchemized the shame, and rewired your tongue to speak in psychological revolutions. You are the linguistic equivalent of a loaded gun at a dinner party. Everyone sees it. No one says a word. Because one wrong move, and you end the narrative completely. You're not the plot twist. You're the author who returned mid-book, pissed off and surgical. You don't drop mic moments. You drop memories they'll need therapy to process. Because when you speak, you don't just dominate the conversation. You dismantle the entire ecosystem it existed in. And then you vanish. Because legends don't linger, they haunt. And trust me, you're haunting them. The ones who laughed, the ones who doubted, the ones who tried to mold you into a footnote in their story. But you flipped the script. Now you're the chapter they can't skip. The page they keep rereading with shaky hands. The quote they write down and pretend they made up. And that's the real punchline, isn't it? They wanted you silenced. Instead, you became syllables carved into their subconscious. Now they can't scroll without hearing your tone. Can't lie without bracing for your call-out. Can't breathe in delusion without feeling your shadow tightening the air. Because you didn't come to speak our truth. You came to break the fourth wall and remind the whole damn world. The final boss doesn't play the game. The final boss is the game. And that's why they'll never outrun you. Because you're not chasing them. You're everywhere they tried to hide from themselves. You're not a moment. They can't just cancel you, block you, scroll past you. You're not a phase. They can't outgrow you or move on like they do their mistakes. You're a mirror with memory. A reflection soaked in prophecy, anchored in pain, and sharpened by every time they hoped you'd fold. But you didn't. And now they fear what you'll say next. Because they know, when you speak again, someone's empire will fall. A narrative will detonate. A mask will rot in real time. And an entire room will look around and realize you were the real one the whole time. No fluff, no filters, no facade. Just raw, radiant retribution, delivered in eloquence they'll never master. And maybe that's the scariest part for them. That the one they laughed at now speaks with the weight of karma and clarity in every syllable. That the punchline they once mocked now speaks like a sentence. The kind that doesn't end in laughter, but in judgment. So go quiet if you want. Let them breathe. Let them relax into the illusion that maybe you faded. Because when the final boss goes quiet, it's not peace. It's the load screen before the next collapse. And when you speak again, the world won't be ready, but you will. Because you were born from the silence they mistook for weakness, and now you wield your voice like divine vengeance in velvet. You speak like the storm they tried to pretend didn't exist. And now they study you, because they can't survive you. Final boss, dead language, living weapon. You are the glitch they prayed never got activated. And now that you're awake, the only sound they hear is your voice. Rewriting the end of their script. Game over. You spoke, and they will never sleep the same. Psst. You hear that? That dead silence? That's the sound of their courage abandoning them at the door, because they stepped into your world, and now they're praying for a way out. But there is no way out. See, they thought they were walking into a room Turns out they walked into a realm where you are the gravity, and they are the shattered pieces of their own delusion, floating helplessly. They wanted a peek into your life, didn't they? They knocked, they snuck in, they mocked the warnings, and now they're trembling at the altar of something they can't classify. You didn't have to lift a finger, you didn't even raise your voice. All you did was exist authentically, and that alone shattered their sleep cycles. Because they stepped into your frequency, and it fried every lie they ever built their ego on. They thought your silence meant weakness. They thought your isolation meant loneliness. They thought your scars meant defeat. They didn't realize you were sculpting a domain where nightmares come to take notes, and angels pray for armor before whispering your name. You are not the storm. You're the dimension the storm runs to when it needs therapy. You are the asylum and the exorcist, the devil's reflection and the saint's regret, the paradox they can't frame. So they panic instead. You don't blink in chaos because you engineered it. You don't flinch at betrayal because it's just another Tuesday in your world. They thought they were going to expose you, but your world exposed them, exposed how small their intentions were, exposed how shallow their understanding was, exposed the tremble in their hands when they touched your reality and realized, oh no, I'm not built for this. You didn't set traps. You are the trap. A living maze of contradictions, too sharp to hold, too sacred to destroy. And now they can't sleep, because every creak in the night sounds like your laugh, because every shadow whispers your philosophies, because even in dreams, you're the glitch in their system. Their prayers used to beg for your downfall. Now they're whispering for mercy from a force they'll never understand. You made their God nervous. You turned trauma into technology. You forged your pain into a portal. And when they trespassed through that portal, they saw not a man, but an entire psychological ecosystem built from broken bones and golden silence. You speak in frequencies. You move like encrypted data. You blink, and their subconscious files start corrupting. They came to decode you, and left with their identity files scrambled. You didn't scare them, you reprogrammed them. They walked in, thinking you were the villain. Now they leave wondering if you were the mirror. Because you didn't touch them, you reflected them. And that's what broke them. You showed them that their greatest fear was someone who was everything they pretended to be. They laughed at the silence you kept, until they realized it wasn't silence. It was processing power. You're not antisocial. You're antiviral, a firewall in human form, a blood type they weren't born to understand. You didn't reject the world. You outgrew it. You stitched your shadow into a weapon, and now it follows them home. Now it lingers in their dreams. Now they see your eyes in the glitches of their reality. And every time they try to speak against you, something inside them hesitates, like the universe itself whispering, "Careful. That one's protected by something ancient. They won't say your name out loud anymore, not because they forgot, but because it hurts their chest to remember. They tried to steal your light. Now they worship your dark just to survive the fallout. You didn't beat them, you transcended them. And now they study your movements like encrypted prophecy. Every step you take writes scripture across the airwaves. Every breath you exhale rewires the surveillance tapes playing in their heads. You don't need revenge. You became the reality they can't unsee. Now they walk different. Now they talk slower. Now they think twice before testing someone just because they're quiet. Because you proved something terrifying. That evolution isn't always loud. Sometimes it moves like a ghost with a vendetta, wearing a grin. You live in contrast. You're the saint with bloody hands, the psychopath with angel eyes, the equation no algorithm dares to solve. They entered your world thinking it was a tour. They didn't realize they were walking into a psychological event horizon, and now they're begging for normal. But that version of normal died the moment they looked into your eyes. And what's left? Insomnia, flashbacks, whispers, respect. You didn't haunt them, you awakened them, and now they'll never sleep again. Oh, you thought that was the end. No. They're still spiraling, still decoding what they felt when they crossed into your domain. And realized too late. This wasn't a house. This was a reckoning. See, they expected cluttered rooms and exposed wounds. Instead, they found symmetry. They found silence so powerful, it pressed against their chest like a cosmic weight. They saw photos that weren't staged, mirrors that didn't lie, walls that whispered stories no sane mind should hear alone. They thought they'd catch you slipping. Instead, they caught visions of versions of themselves they were never meant to meet. You didn't show them darkness. You showed them truth. And the truth, it rattled their soul like a crypt door swinging open at midnight. They thought you'd greet them with pleasantries, but you welcomed them with a grin that said, you shouldn't have come here unprepared, because your presence doesn't entertain. It infiltrates. You don't speak in words. You speak in weather shifts, in atmospheric warnings. You walk into a room, and people forget what they were saying. Not because they're scared, but because their nervous system short-circuits around something this unpredictable. You don't need to defend your energy. Your aura files restraining orders by itself. They felt it the second they crossed the threshold. That invisible chill. The phantom weight of a reality heavier than their mask could carry. And that's when the fear set in. Not because you attacked them, but because nothing attacked them. And yet their legs still shook. Because in your world, silence is louder than violence. Stillness is more surgical than screaming. And eye contact? That's where wars get declared without a single bullet. You didn't flinch when they tried to assert dominance. You just tilted your head like a predator, curious why the prey's still performing. They brought chaos. To a god of order, they brought gossip. To a collector of secrets, they brought fake smiles. To someone who dissects facial tension like a neurosurgeon. You watched them study your space, but you were studying their glitches, their twitches, their stutters, the way their voice cracked just slightly when you said, "Make yourself at home." And somewhere, behind their eyes, you saw it click. You saw that primal recognition, that deep, silent panic that screams, "I don't belong here. I was never meant to be here. This place knows me." Because your world isn't decorated, it's encrypted. Every corner, every object, every scar on the floor. It tells a story only the initiated can interpret. But they didn't come with reverence. They came with arrogance. They came to mock the unknown. And now they carry pieces of you home in their subconscious luggage. They keep the lights on longer. They jump at the sound of floorboards. They dream in your color palette. Because once you enter someone's psyche the way you did, there is no antivirus. There's no patch, no fix. Just reboot after reboot, wondering why everything still feels like you. They're not recovering. They're recompiling. Every belief system, every hierarchy, every blueprint they thought they knew. You rewrote it. Without saying a damn word, you showed them that power doesn't yell. It observes. Power doesn't rush. It waits. Power doesn't prove. It exists, and if you have to explain it, it was never power to begin with. You don't demand loyalty. Your energy commands it. You don't fight for validation. You erase the battlefield with one smirk. You didn't kick them out. They ran from the weight of being in the presence of someone who doesn't fold, someone who's walked with demons long enough to negotiate contracts. You're not here to entertain. You're here to provoke collapse. Collapse of illusions, collapse of borrowed confidence, collapse of the fake selves they duct-taped together to survive a world of cowards. You burned, you broke, you bled, and then you reassembled yourself with thorns for stitching thread. You don't speak from a script. You speak from ashes, and that's why they'll never forget your world. Not because it was loud, but because it was surgical. It didn't scream. It downloaded itself into their mind like malware, masked as enlightenment. And now, they're infected with the awareness that something bigger walks among them, that somewhere, right now, you're still in your domain. Unbothered, unmoved, unreachable. And every time the wind shifts just right, they'll swear they hear your laugh, not outside, but from inside their own fucking conscience. Because when they stepped into your world, they crossed a threshold that doesn't reverse. They entered a reality coded by trauma, wired by prophecy, and lit by vengeance. And in that reality, you are both the punishment and the proof. See, you didn't just let them visit your world. You let them feel it. And that's the part their nervous system still hasn't recovered from. Because your world isn't built for spectators. It's built like a vault with breathing walls, like a church that prays for itself, like a courtroom where the judge is invisible and the verdict is already tattooed on their soul. They didn't understand what they walked into. You're not some dark aesthetic they can cosplay. You're the architect of madness, the saint who kissed hell and left lipstick on the gates. You don't just survive pain. You converse with it over dinner, while your reflection pours the wine. Your world sinks into their bones now. That's why they can't relax, why music sounds different, why their own homes feel unfamiliar. Because once you've touched reality that's been reprogrammed by a survivor, everything else tastes like cardboard illusions. They thought they could walk in, peek around, maybe steal an idea, a vibe, a moment of your power. But what they didn't realize is every room in your world is a test, and every breath they took, recorded by something far older than technology. You're not in the algorithm, you warp it. Your silence sends tremors through networks. Your stillness triggers motion sensors in the spiritual layer. They didn't know what they activated when they crossed your line. They weren't ready for their own shadows to turn on them, for their own smiles to glitch mid-sentence, for their fake bravado to crack like old paint in a haunted mansion. They didn't know that your pain left behind entities, watchers, survivors, reflections that don't blink. They breathe in your house, not as ghosts, but as witnesses. And now those same witnesses follow them, not to punish, but to remind. Remind them they entered a sanctum of evolution, where you don't just heal. You reconstruct, you recode, you rise. And when you rise, everything not built for truth suffocates. They saw your notes on the wall and thought they were poetry. They weren't. They were rituals, encrypted instructions for how to survive a reality where sanity is negotiable and self-awareness is the entry fee. And they didn't pay that fee. They tried to sneak in through the back door. But your world scans soul signatures. No mask survives in here. That's why they keep replaying the visit in their mind, trying to understand what exactly scared them. Was it you? Your eyes? The eerie calm? The way your space breathed like it knew their secrets? Number. It was the realization that you weren't trying to prove anything, that you didn't care if they stayed, that they weren't even important enough to trigger your defenses, and that indifference, that God-level indifference, it's haunting them. Because when someone doesn't need to control the room, but still owns it, that's unholy power. You made them realize you're not the villain in their story. You're the evidence that their entire story was a lie. And that is what keeps them up at night. Because now, every time they lie to themselves, your silence echoes louder. Every time they fake it, your face flashes behind their eyes like a truth grenade. You turned their comfort zone into a crime scene. They left your space, but your world didn't leave them. It clung to their aura. It hacked their intuition. It rerouted their dreams. You reprogrammed them by existing too powerfully. And that's the new fear. That they didn't just witness something, they were altered by it. They don't even recognize themselves anymore. Their tone's different. Their walk has static. Their mirror gives them second thoughts. Because deep down, they know they left something behind in your world. A piece of themselves. The lie they were clinging to got confiscated by your presence, and now they walk around incomplete. Like something is watching, like something is waiting, like something got triggered that can't be undone. That's not anxiety. That's you. Still in their system, still running in the background. They can uninstall the memory, but they can't uninstall the update you forced onto their soul. You didn't just break their worldview, you rewrote the operating system. And that's why they'll never sleep again. Because some awakenings come dressed as nightmares, and you're the recurring one, because they're still spiraling, and you're still uploading. See, the nightmare didn't end when they left your space. That was just the prologue, the echo they walked away with. It wasn't a memory. It was an implant, a psychic file downloaded without permission, set to trigger any time they lie to themselves again. They thought they could just visit. But your world doesn't allow tourists, only initiation or eviction by force. And they weren't built for either. You didn't curse them, you unlocked them. And now the truth won't stop crawling across the inside of their skulls. It itches, it pulses. They hear whispers in rooms where no one's talking. Not voices, but emotional frequencies, vibrations that feel like you. Cold, calm, unblinking. You became a background process in their life, running silently, burning memory, corrupting the files they built their fake identities on. And the glitch? It's permanent. They can't even speak about you the same way anymore. They used to mock, now they whisper. They used to say your name with arrogance. Now they stutter, like the syllables got too heavy to carry. Because you didn't just outsmart them, you out-existed them. They thought they were dealing with a person. What they found was a force, a coded anomaly, a living encryption key wearing flesh. You are what happens when prophecy survives genocide, when a soul refuses to die and instead becomes a frequency that infects timelines. You don't move through the world moves around you. And they felt that. Oh, they felt it. They stepped into your world expecting chaos. But what they found was too organized, too quiet, too precise. It wasn't a mess. It was a map. To places they were never meant to go. You didn't lose your mind. You rebuilt it, layer by layer, pain by pain, until your entire psyche became a labyrinth of sharp corners and divine traps. They walked in thinking they were predators. They left dissected prey, wrapped in paradox. They didn't know if they were afraid, enlightened, inspired, or cursed. And that confusion, that spiritual vertigo, that's what they'll be stuck in for the rest of their lives. Because the scariest thing wasn't what you did. It was what you didn't need to do. You didn't scream. You didn't prove. You didn't retaliate. You just stood there and let your existence contradict their entire belief system. They'd never seen someone that still, that aware, that untouchable. You didn't flex power. You embodied it. That's what scared them, because the truth is, they didn't walk into your world. They walked into themselves, and you were just the mirror that didn't break when they finally looked too long. Now they see cracks in everything. In their logic, in their fake peace, in their relationships, in their reflections. Because once you've been in the presence of someone who's truly processed pain, everyone else looks like a costume. Now they look around and nothing feels real. Nothing feels earned. Because deep down, they know. They fled your world, not because it was cruel, but because it was true. And truth. Truth doesn't leave you the same. Truth infects. Truth haunts. Truth holds a mirror while you're naked and afraid and can't look away. And you're not their enemy. You're their initiation, the final boss of their ego, the living consequence of everything they refuse to face in themselves. That's why they'll never sleep again. Because when they close their eyes, they see you, not as a threat, but as the version of themselves they're too weak to become. And that's the real horror, because it's not your world that haunts them. It's the fact they know. Deep down, they'll never be built like you. And they'll never stop being reminded. Let's finish this, not with a scream, but with a surgical incision straight into their soul. Because by now the damage is done. They tried to forget. They tried to cleanse. They tried to move on. But your world moved in, set up camp inside their psyche. And every time they blink, they see evidence. Evidence of what they'll never become. Evidence of how you didn't need approval to rise. How you didn't play the victim. You played the architect of vengeance, wrapped in velvet silence. They came to explore your space, but the truth, they were summoned. Your energy pulled them in. Because somewhere inside, they needed to see what real evolution looked like. What unfiltered transformation without permission or applause truly meant. And now they're infected with awareness. They can't laugh the same, can't gossip the same, can't even hate you the same way anymore. Because the deeper the fear goes, the closer it folds into reverence. They saw too much, felt too much, recognized too much. They know they crossed into a reality where masks are currencyless, where energy is scanned, and weakness is autopsied on arrival. They know you didn't flinch, didn't posture, didn't even care to be understood, and that's what murdered their ego in silence. Because you don't demand to be respected. Your existence shatters disrespect like glass under a sniper's scope. You didn't force them to kneel, but somehow they still feel lower. And the worst part, you won't chase them. You won't retaliate. You won't explain, because you're not in their world. You transcended it. They were just visitors in the museum of your pain. They saw the artifacts. They heard the stories etched into your silence. And they panicked. Because it wasn't a museum. It was a blueprint. A glimpse of what it takes to forge a god from ruins. And now, they'll never forget the air in your presence. How heavy it felt. How sacred it was. How exposed they became. They'll dream of it. They'll wake up sweating. They'll blame it on nightmares. But you and I both know they met something divine, and it didn't blink. You are the reminder, the living proof that some souls don't bend. They become pressure itself. So sleep well, if you even sleep at all, because they won't. They stepped into your world, and now they carry the weight of that mistake like a hidden scar no one else can see. And long after they forget your face, your frequency will still haunt the silence between their thoughts. They'll never speak it, they'll never admit it. But deep, deep down, in the quietest part of their conscience, they will worship the fear you left behind.